What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
A true patriot defends liberty and the people.
It's a holding pen. It can hold thousands of people.
The pharmaceutical industry that are killing the brains of the nation.
Reducing the population growth.
Documents and admissions that the public schools are basically brainwashing camps.
They continue to crack down hard on the protesters this afternoon.
That are fed genetically engineered.
Will we finally know the truth about GMOs?
Intoxicate mass populations.
Why they should want extra fluoride in water.
The US dollar will collapse.
You get sick, too bad, you can't take it to court.
Concerning the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center.
While they're doing this, they're amassing this wealth in order to redirect it toward martial law.
That military men can be used as pawns, that they can be sent back on psychotropic medications back into combat.
An antidepressant may have contributed to 5 deaths in kids aged between 10 and 19.
David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger are among its some 300 influential members.
Hyper-militarization. Police act like soldiers. Army. We're becoming a police state.
A true patriot defends liberty and the people.
Do you like beer, wine, champagne? Do you know what alcohol is? People have been making alcohol since ancient times. Alcohol makers use grains of any fruit or vegetable. Let's take the grape, for example. Grapes contain lots of nutrition if we eat them, but for making alcohol, they're crushed and mixed with yeast. Now, what is yeast? It is bacteria from the sugar fungus family. Yeast bacteria love glucose from grapes. When mixed with crushed grapes, they instantly begin to breed fast. These bacteria eat glucose, digest it, then excrete what the organism doesn't need. They urinate. This is the simple body of a bacterium. They eat glucose and they urinate. Glucose is C6H12O6. It turns to urine or ethanol alcohol, 2C2H5OH, plus carbon dioxide gas, 2CO2. Yeast bacteria eat fructose, digest it, and defecate alcohol. There's a scientific word for this digestion. It's called fermentation. So in cold-blooded reality, alcohol is nothing but the urine of yeast bacteria. When the percentage of ethanol reaches 11 to 18%, the yeast bacteria die. They are poisoned by their own urine, and it is the end of so-called fermentation. Then this urine is bottled. You buy it and you drink it as beer, wine, whiskey, vodka, sake, tequila, champagne, or a fruit-flavored malt beverage. The mix of alcohol and caffeine is very popular among students these days. So what is champagne? After the wine is made, they let the CO2 escape. Then they add more yeast and sugar for the yeast bacteria to eat and excrete more urine. They call it a second fermentation. Then the champagne is bottled and let to age. They keep the bottle sealed to accumulate more urine and gas. In 15 months, all yeast bacteria die. They get poisoned, choked on their own urine, and they keep the bottles at an inverted 45-degree angle, and all the dead bacteria sink down to the cork. So then they freeze the neck of the bottle with these deposits, the dead bacteria. They call it lees for wine and trub for beer. They remove it, cork the bottle again, and with colorful labels and metals it turns to champagne. Yeast is used to eat the simple sugars from any organic and put out urine, ethanol, which is then distilled off to obtain ethanol up to 96% concentration. They are then called whiskey, vodka, tequila, etc. So ethanol is not the outcome of a chemical reaction, not a product of yeast metabolism. It is yeast excrement. Metabolism is by definition a process of supporting a living creature to maintain life, to grow, to reproduce, to keep up the structure. The yeast poops out the ethanol to survive. People drink alcohol and don't know that this is the urine. Ethanol is a protoplasmic toxin, a poison, but the most covert poison. It has anesthetic properties. Inside the body, it makes nerves numb so we don't have the sensation of pain, which otherwise would signal danger and harm. Our bodies have no protection against alcohol because throughout life, inside the body remains delicate and defenseless like a newborn baby. The molecules of ethanol go directly to the bloodstream. They kill the red blood cells in the blood, which glue together, creating clots from 8 to 1,000. These clots continue traveling in the bloodstream, reach the most narrowed capillaries in the brain, and finally stick there. Each cell of our brain is connected to the entire blood system of the body through the tiniest capillaries. Their diameter is only the size of one red blood cell. The red blood cell can get through the neuron only one at a time, so the capillary gets corked up by the clots. Just 3 or 4 minutes without oxygen, which is delivered by the blood, the brain cells die. These dead neurons start to decay, causing inflammation. Think about it. Do you wonder what stroke is? The main cause of heart attacks. The main problems can be traced back to toxin poisoning, but ethanol is the most prevalent toxin. Then there is an increase in blood pressure, which causes stretching of the capillaries as the body tries to reach the dead, decaying cells to prevent inflammation. That's why people have headaches, red faces, and red eyes after drinking alcohol. As the body tries to get rid of the poison, people can't walk, can't talk, can't see. They just killed 1 million cells of their brain. The brain is a central communicator of the nervous system. The whole body, including the eyes, cannot function in this state. And in the morning, people urinate out their own dead brain cells. The blood is pumped in lots of water to wash out the dead cells to prevent fatal inflammations. So when we drink, we have high blood pressure under the scalp. You might have heard from medical representatives that alcohol causes the capillaries to dilate. This is not true. The body pumps all possible liquid to the blood, dehydrating other organs in an effort to wash out dead cells together with poisonous alcohol. And that is what stretches the capillaries, not the alcohol itself. The neurons practically don't regenerate after birth. So with each glass of alcohol, people kill armies of their own brain cells, making the brain smaller and weaker. The question is, how much alcohol is not dangerous? The answer is none. Just remember this from now on. Alcohol, ethanol, is a protoplasmic toxin, and it even smells like urine because it is urine. Some people believe that ethanol causes relaxation. We will reveal to you what this relaxation really is. Our body is a very sophisticated mechanism. It identifies alcohol as a poison instantly. It pulls in all possible resources from each part of the body to fight it. That is what a drinking person mistakenly identifies as a burst of energy, sort of enthusiasm or relaxation. It vanishes fast. The next step, intoxication, as an organism tries to fight this poison but cannot. Inside our body, there is no protective skin. It is as tender as a newborn baby. So, would you feed a baby alcohol? Our body grows in size, but it is just as tender inside. Ethanol dissolves the blood-brain barrier. This is the biological mechanism protecting the brain from harmful large molecules and bacteria. Ethanol dissolves this barrier and penetrates into the brain instantly. Every single sip of it is poison. Our body is a self-regenerating organism. In 12 years, scientists say, we have a complete new body. However, there are 2 kinds of cells that practically never regenerate in the human body: brain cells, neurons, and female reproductive cells. These cells are developed when the body is born. Then nature placed them in the safest places, inside the scalp and deep inside the middle of the body. There are only 2 ways to harm or kill them: injury or poison. If a person has even a sip of any kind of alcohol, he cannot conceive a perfectly healthy baby. His reproductive system is damaged. A man's body needs 100 days to regenerate. On the other hand, a woman's reproductive cells are formed when she is born. They only mature and wait until needed. Alcohol can cause a woman to lose her ability to conceive, or to cause her to give birth to a child with any number of disorders or syndromes. Looking at demographics of the United States, Canada, England, Germany, Russia, Italy, France, everywhere the population is vanishing. Why? It is being washed out by this poison. The truth is that 60% of children are now born with defects, physical and mental. A future mother must never consume any alcoholic beverages. Ask the parents of a child born with Down syndrome, physical defects, and other disorders. Did they have alcohol in their bodies when they conceived? Or did the mother damage her reproductive cells long before by drinking alcohol in her teen years? Only in nations where alcohol is forbidden by the religion, Muslims for example, is the population growing. Even one beer lowers your perceptions and cognitive ability for days. Some scientist professionals have observed that after alcohol consumption, they could not get back on track on their sophisticated research for a whole month. Alcohol has been used since ancient Egyptian times. Here is a record from a wall of the pyramids. Beer in the morning, beer in the afternoon, and beer at night. A little wine thrown in for good measure, and after a hard day of cutting stones for the pharaoh, time and energy left for a bit of hanky-panky. The worshippers of Tenerit, goddess of beer, or Sekhmet, and Hathor got drunk on beer as part of their worship of these goddesses. But in ancient party scenes on tomb walls, it would seem that quite a bit of wine was consumed, since images depict guests throwing up or being carried home because of their drunken state. Drunkenness was suggested as an amusement to the ancient Egyptian workers. At celebrations of drunkenness to the Eye of Ra, wine was given to everybody. The temples associated with the goddesses had their own vineyards to make sure that celebrants had enough wine for the rituals. In the pyramid texts, the god Shesmu brings the king grape juice for wine production. Although he was a god of wine and of the winepress, he was also a vengeful god. In later Egyptian records, beer and wine production was owned by priests and given to people in religious ceremonies to drive drunk, intoxicated slaves into the state of ecstasy. Beer was the most used Egyptian drink for slaves. It was a drink for adults and children alike. It was a staple drink of the poor. Workmen at the pyramids of the Giza Plateau were given beer 3 times a day. 5 kinds of beer and 4 kinds of wine were found by archaeologists poking through dumps, examining skeletons, texts, remains of beer jars, and wine vats. In medieval Europe, the Roman Catholic Church was a staunch supporter of wine, since it was necessary for the celebration of Mass. Monks in France made wine for years, storing it in underground caves to age it and make champagne. Alcohol is quite often connected to religious ceremonies. And as we understand it now, alcohol was used to make slaves drunk and insane to keep slavery going. And it is still a mechanism for control. It makes people sick and busy with doctors and hospitals. It keeps IQ low. This way nobody gets smart and sees outside the box. In the animal kingdom, there is a similar pattern of slavery through intoxication. The Lomachusa beetle. Beetles enter an anthill. Then the ants run to kick out the intruder. The beetle then acts as a drug peddler. It produces a substance which acts as a drug to the ants. They become intoxicated and feed and groom the beetle. The ants even feed the grubs of the beetle. We see in society people who act like the Lomachusa beetle. Think of a time when you refused to get intoxicated while others did not. Alcohol is everywhere. It is a drug. It must be stopped immediately and forever. Show this video to all your people. Help them get out of the slavery. From now on, we don't use the term alcoholic beverage. We call it alcohol poison. Production of pure alcohol is incredibly cheap. The cost of 1 bottle of vodka is 9 cents. The annual world sales of hard alcohol is $250 billion. That's why the biggest, most gigantic promotions in our towns belong to the alcohol industry. It is complete insanity. Propaganda is getting more and more in your face. The system is practicing this absurdity supported by the media, and even medical practitioners condition people to believe that it's okay to drink, even saying moderate alcohol drinking is the solution to practically all major health problems that the alcohol in fact causes. Well, draw this picture with the yeast bacteria urinating the alcohol. Show it to your children. They'll have lots of fun finding out what those adults drink. Alcohol, like all other drugs, makes you weak and stupid. It doesn't make you cool. Educate your kids. Save a child, and you save a nation. The New York State Department of Health, on one of its educational charts, has a strong statement. Alcohol causes more misery, sickness, inefficiency, and death than any other single cause. It is not a food. It is poison. Total abstinence decidedly decreases longevity. Alcohol paralyzes the micromuscles in the eye. It coagulates blood in the microcapillaries, blocks nutrients and oxygen delivery to the eye cells. This results in eye diseases. You know that the 1950s in the United States was called the Pink Age. Remember the great cars, the beautiful girls with a narrow waist, handsome men in great shape? You know that most houses had no keys? People trusted each other. There was not much criminality. They had higher IQ, better health, stronger integrity. Now look at this overweight population, our models. Flat, breathless body. Look at the men with the big belly, too broad hips, some even pretending that they are women. This is a sign of degeneration. That's the result of alcoholization. We read from a medical encyclopedia. A drug, basically speaking, is any substance that, when absorbed into the body of a living organism, alters normal bodily function. What else do we know? Practically everywhere, alcohol is suggested as a recreational drug. Whoever put these two words together was fatally ignorant, because it is not a recreation to be harming health and the mind. From the encyclopedia again, recreational drugs are chemical substances that affect the central nervous system, such as opioids or hallucinogens. As an example, you could hear on the news that people got this or that unknown dreadful infection after vacation on some cruise. Well, these people did a lot of drinking on those cruises, killed armies of their cells, ruined the biological balance. Well, no wonder they got sick. National prohibition led to a boom in the cruise industry. By taking what were advertised as cruises to nowhere, people could legally consume alcohol as soon as the ship entered international waters where they could typically cruise in circles. These cruises quickly became known as booze cruises. More profit for the medicine industry. You might remember your chemistry teacher in school showing an experiment how alcohol coagulates blood in a test tube. So it does in our bodies. In 1961, 3 American scientists, Nasely, Mascow, and Pennington, were exploring the human eye using a special long-focus microscope. Through the pupil of the eye, they focused on the microvessel of the retina. With help of a sidelight, physicists, for the first time in the history of science, could look inside the human vessels and observe how blood flows. They could see the walls of vessels, the red and white cells, everything. But one day, while observing one subject, when they looked into his vessels, they gasped with surprise. Clusters, clots of glued-together erythrocytes, dead red cells. They called them grape bunches, and counted many of them, from 8 to 400, and some up to 1,000 erythrocyte clusters. Physicists were terrified, but the man was not worried. On the second, the third participant, everything was fine. On the fourth, clusters again. They investigated and found out that these two had had alcohol before. The physicists performed a barbaric experiment. They gave another patient 1 shot of whiskey, and in 15 minutes, the blood of this man was observed to have the clusters of erythrocytes. The physicists thought they had just made the greatest scientific discovery, proving that blood coagulates in alcohol, not only in a test tube, but in the live vessels, and that this will change the concept that alcohol is not a recreational drug. It is a killing drug like other poisons. But no, this discovery was totally suppressed and forgotten. Once ethanol gets into the blood, it damages red blood cells. Red blood cells, erythrocytes, have a slightly negative charge, pushing each other away. Ethanol neutralizes this charge, and instead of pushing off, they stick together. Have you ever wondered why many older men have red and blue swollen noses? This is what it is. Blood vessels are the thinnest just under the skin, so the blood clots approach, stop, stack up, and stop up these little capillaries. They atrophy, and drinkers have this blue-red swollen nose and face, or red spots on the skin. The same is going on in the brain. Man's brain consists of 15 million nerve cells, neurons. The diameter of the capillary feeding it is very tiny, 1 red cell. They can get through here only 1 by 1. When a clot gets stuck in a capillary, in 3 to 4 minutes the brain cell without oxygen suffocates and dies. Each sip of alcohol makes a new cemetery of dead brain cells in man's head. When pathologists open the brain of regular social drinkers, they see them as wrinkled, shrunken, with microscars and sores. They are not surprised to see it this way, but wonder how a man could live at all. Alcohol destroys structural and functional integrity of the brain. A person swallows it, the red blood cells glue up in clusters, stop the blood capillaries, the brain cells get suffocated, the massive dying off begins. The normal operation of the cerebral cortex stops, causing destruction of the vestibular system, which contributes to balance and to the sense of spatial orientation. It is the leading contributor about movement and sense of balance. Therefore, this system affects the movement of our eyes. Some people under the influence of alcohol lose coordination, some lose memory, and some lose consciousness. It's all the result of poisoning. As mentioned before, the body washes out the dead brain cells. And what happens to that liquid later on? Well, you urinate them out in the morning after a night of drinking. So there's the modern scientific saying, he who drinks wine and beer urinates their own brain. We hope you'll never forget it. Explain it to your children and save them. Together we can set man free from alcoholic slavery. Okay, so you have a health condition, now you know the main cause of it. There's no single disease that cannot be triggered by ethanol poisoning. None. There are a lot of things to accomplish in life, but if we take responsibility for this part, we will be on our way out of this drunk, sick world. Even, dear friend, if you are personally never drinking this poison, let others know about this video. Help those who are not this strong or fortunate as you. Do not hesitate to speak up against alcohol. People will be very grateful to you. We open the encyclopedia. Beer, an alcoholic beverage, the third most popular after water and tea. produced by fermentation of yeast, urine again. One brand of Chinese beer reportedly includes in its recipe even ground-up dog part. If beer ranges from 4 to 20% alcohol, it's 4 to 20% yeast urine. Production of beer is mentioned as early as 6,000 years ago in Egypt, and in 1800 BC in the Babylonian Code of Hammurabi, which included laws regulating beer. In early European cultures, the components of beer included different fruits and narcotic herbs. In 822, hops were added to the production of beer. This plant has a substance identically similar to estrogen, the female hormone. In beer manufacturing, it was noticed that because of dealing with hops, most female workers often have irregular cycle problems. When a man drinks beer, he consumes this hormone estrogen. It causes hormone imbalance and consequently feminization of his body. He grows bigger hips or a big belly. His voice gets thinner, shoulders get smaller, he gets female manners, loses natural attraction to women, turns less firm and determined as a man should be. He gets fearful. The first recorded use of hops for beer production were Germanic tribes. They have a saying now, a man who drinks a lot of beer becomes like a ripe watermelon, swollen stomach and little dried up tendril. It's not a joke, but a reality. Because of the beer, the male genital gets smaller and smaller. They suffer from impotence and male pattern baldness. That's a medical observation. A boy can even be born with this defect if he has a mother who was drinking during pregnancy. Or his genitals could remain undeveloped if he was given beer, like to help him sleep as an infant. For men, when drinking alcohol, when the male hormone testosterone interacts with the alcohol molecule gets one carbon segment out, and it turns the testosterone to estrogen. Right in the blood, male hormones turn to female hormones. But the problem gets worse. This tendency gets on the genome and becomes the stable genetic deficiency and modification for future generations. When a woman drinks beer, it causes the opposite effect. Her body gets male characteristics, such as developing male secondary sexuality, including reproductive disability, losing natural tenderness, disinterest in children, broad shoulders, deepening voice, genome modifications, and opening the door to every kind of disease. Some people drink non-alcoholic beer, and they don't know how harmful it is. It is not truly non-alcoholic. It is low-alcohol beer, still an alcoholic beverage. The same poison with all the same byproduct toxic ingredients. We already know the dreadful reality of alcohol, or the yeast urine. But what about the hops used in beer production? Hops are the female flower clusters of the plant related to cannabis, which is a marijuana plant. Marijuana is the most widely used psychoactive drug. It is also known that men working in the hop plantations suffered from dermatitis, skin lesions, and dogs would get intoxicated, leading to death. Women were not even allowed to work there. Nowadays, a hybrid is made. The hop plant is grafted onto marijuana rootstocks to crossbreed the top, and it's called tipsy hops. It has stronger narcotic characteristics, making beer very addictive. Cannabis beer in Germany has the marijuana leaf on its label. Another toxic byproduct of beer production is fusel alcohol, furfuryl, an aromatic aldehyde, similar to benzene, acetone. Because of all these components, women are not allowed at all, and male workers on the beer production line suffer from serious eye problems, glaucoma, farsightedness, myopia, extensive inner pressure, black spots on the retina, spots on the iris, all just because of beer steam. When people drink beer, they undergo multiple poisoning and harm, consuming these toxic byproducts. Some promotions advertise so-called living beer. This product, besides all toxins mentioned above, have even more dreadful properties. Usually beer undergoes pasteurization, hitting it up to 70 degrees Celsius, killing yeast bacteria. So the living beer is not pasteurized. It contains live yeast bacteria. When people drink it, the bacteria get in their stomach, and what is it doing inside your body? Well, the same thing it was doing in the fermentation. The yeast eat organic substances inside your body and urinate ethanol. And you have an alcohol factory inside your body. Antibiotics that kill regular bacteria will not harm yeast, as the biochemistry of yeast is different. Yeast is also not recognized by white blood cells, which defend the blood by attacking harmful substances. Yeast also remove from the body the most valuable metals, like magnesium, iron, calcium, zinc, and use them for their own growth. Consumption of any alcohol, even in tiny doses, is very harmful. You don't have to be an alcoholic to be exposed to all kinds of health problems, heart attacks, Parkinson's disease, kidney failure, cancer. With alcohol, people have no chance for health. You might have heard some say that we can digest alcohol in small portions and it's not bad. This is not true. Humans, like other animals, have an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase, produced in the liver. It breaks down alcohol, which otherwise would be toxic. It breaks down the alcohol made by yeast bacteria, which natively lives on grapes and other fruits. But the body only produces a tiny amount, not enough to protect the body if any alcohol is consumed at all. Now, how else does alcohol destroy the body? As we all know from school, ethanol is a solvent. It dissolves fats and proteins. We use it for cleaning. We should realize that our organs don't have a protective cover like our skin. They are exposed. The walls of the human cell are made of different kinds of proteins and lipids, partially fats. Ethanol dissolves it, ruins it, and then opens the way to all other toxins and harm to the cell from the inside. The biggest danger is that ethanol penetrates inside the cell, where the nucleus of the cell is located. The ethanol then harms and modifies your DNA, your body, and your life. It modifies your future, the future of your children, and the future of your children's children, their entire life. Alcohol, ethanol, is a protoplasmic toxin, which means that it poisons and destroys your body in the tiniest and deepest level of plasma and cell matter. It is the beginning of every health problem. Cancer, arthritis, blood pressure, stroke, eye problems, depression, anxiety, crippled newborns. Name millions of known and unknown health conditions. They can all be caused by it. You may have a question here. How much alcohol is not harmful? The answer is none. Write it down. Tell your children. The safe dose of alcohol for every person is 0. Every single word from anybody who said that alcohol is any good is a total intentional lie, misleading, stupid, and ignorant. Dishonest alcohol advocates claim that wine or beer are good because they have some nutrition. Sure, the essential matter was organic, but if you take calcium and add uranium to it, would you call it nutrition? Of course not. It is still a killing substance. And to make it more clear, the percentage of the alcohol in alcoholic beverages is the exact percentage of yeast urine. The rest is highly acidic liquid of toxic byproducts, sometimes with lots of sugar, which is also a very harmful substance. What is a narcotic? What is a common denominator of all narcotics? They cause euphoria. And what is euphoria? Euphoria is a mental sickness, a sensation of fake peacefulness, placidity, fake joy. It is mental retardation. This is the same sensation of all strong and illegal drugs. It is the retarded sensation of fake freedom. It is nothing but losing all responsibility before yourself and others. In numerous experiments on rats given alcohol, they were not getting pregnant. Soon they were simply dying. So are humans, just more slowly. In the 60s, a group of scientists were learning newborn pigs' behavior. They found that in 6 weeks, they create a pack. One of, not the biggest usually, but likely the bravest, became a leader. He commands all other piglets. He is the first to the food trough, and all the other pigs wait till he's done. One day, a scientist included beer with the slops. So the leader piglet ran up as usual, but didn't start to eat. He smelled the slops, smelled again, looked really confused. He looked to the left, looked to the right, not sure what to do. But he was hungry and ate. When he walked away, the rest of the pack ran up to the slop. 15 minutes after they ate, the piglets became overactive. They started to fight with each other and even bite the leader. But in a short while, they became disoriented, started to shiver, hide in the corners, and fell asleep. In a couple of days, everything was back on track. The order was restored. The scientists gave them food with beer again. The leader piglet ran up. He didn't start to eat again. He looked left, looked right, looked above. Then he hooked the trough by his little snout and overturned it. The scientists thought it was an accident. He gave them the slop with the beer again, but the pig jumped and overturned it this time. Isn't it amazing? A small piglet with his little brain had enough mind to reject alcohol, to detect that it was not edible, and wouldn't let the pack get harmed again. Look around. This poison is everywhere. You most likely were not aware of what alcohol really is. Well, you are now. Become a leader in your family, your community. Prevent people from self-poisoning. We must eliminate this hidden killing weapon from our civilization once and forever. The question is, are we conscious enough to overturn this alcohol slop? The last thing on alcohol, heroin and alcohol are narcotics at the same level of addiction. It is not overstating, but the scientific fact. So let's finally get off this delusion that lasted for such a long time. The old saying, everything in moderation, is no longer applicable. Only the insane would take poisons in moderation. In 1975, during the Congress of the World Health Organization, alcohol was defined as a toxin. This is all that people would have to know to reject this poison instantly and forever. Alcohol is the #1 means to deprive people of their mind, make slaves of them, bipeds instead of creative, forward-looking individuals. Alcohol is a narcotic, a very addictive and harmful drug. Our body has no ability to fight alcoholic beverages. Toxic molecules stay in the blood more than 24 hours, but a big percentage of it, like all other toxins, remain in the tissues forever, accumulating over the years, constantly harming the body, including the eyes. Toxins can be removed only by complete purification. For women, the reproductive cells are fully developed at birth. They stay there all her life, waiting once a month to mature. And it's never known which glass of champagne or beer can damage that very cell which later becomes a crippled or disfigured newborn. Women who ever have the intention of having children must never drink alcoholic poison. In ancient Greece, to some degree, people seem to know this. At one time, wine was forbidden newly married brides. In all cultures up to the beginning of last century, the consumption of alcohol by women was considered a heavy sin. How many families we know of, even celebrities, struggle to care for children born with physiological or mental problems? All of them are the result of alcohol intoxication of their parents on a beautiful wedding day, very often long before. There's not a single cell, no single organ that doesn't get harmed by this terrible poison. In ancient times, alcohol, beer and wine, was given to workers, slaves, part of the effort to keep them in slavery. But look around. Alcohol is everywhere, in each corner of our towns, in each house. Is slavery still on? No, we have to end this intoxication. It's ruining our lives. The most dangerous effects are in the brain. This toxin accumulates in the brain. It doesn't get digested like food. It is absorbed right from the mouth and ventricles, gets into the bloodstream, to the brain, and causes very intensive destruction of the cerebral cortex. The mechanism is very simple and has been long known. The dreadful effects of ethanol are described in all books, yet people still consume it. Why? Because it is so available, aggressively advertised, and even suggested by some dishonest or ignorant representatives of medicine as being healthy. Let's take responsibility for this poison now. Let's save our children. Ironically, parents are the first to teach children how to drink, simply by setting an example, drinking in their presence. Alcohol is the #1 killer of the whole human civilization from the early dawn of it. Under alcohol, a person is partially insane. Many would say that they are not an alcoholic, they say they just drink a little to relax. Well, it's not relaxation, it's making you stupid and sick. If you test your IQ after even one drink, you'd be terrified of how low it has already dropped. It is well known that it is poison, but it's called a recreational drug, which is a total lie. It's exactly the opposite. It is ruining the body. Our children are taught in schools, and we are instilled by the media and all health organizations into drink responsibly. You most likely never realized that this is the best propaganda to consume it, because the message here is drink. It is a narcotic, it is addictive. It is the same as if they said kill yourself smartly or poison yourself responsibly.